Hello, welcome back to this space. I'm your host Halima Katel, and I'm so excited that you are back here. It's good to be back, and today we are discussing identity. Um, Identity is defined as a set of values, is a set of belief systems, the different traits and characteristics that actually distinguish you from one person, um, and it makes you stand out. And we know that, of course, identity just doesn't emerge. You don't just wake up and become who you are or what people say you are or how they perceive you to be, but actually this is predetermined by a set of factors. We can talk about the upbringing. When growing up, different families set different ways of how they do things, and eventually that can affect or impact how your identity is perceived and who you actually are. And then, of course, the other aspect is the cultural backgrounds. The cultural backgrounds also can set your identity because a certain culture is identified by this certain practice or the other. But also know that as you grow up and now you begin to evolve and go through the different stages of life, you'll be able now to go through education. So what you study at school, what you eventually do in the marketplace, or all those things now eventually, impact your identity. Because if you've gone through a course, you'll find that either you're now becoming a person who is either into the certain field of work and the other, and maybe that makes your identity. And because of that, even the work experience that you acquire can actually give you an identity, because now it will give you a skill set that is totally different from the rest of other people. Welcome back to Hope Anchor Channel. It's a space where we see that Jesus is the main source of anchor. If this is your first time to do this, please, why not hit that subscription button, hit the notification bell so that you are sure of getting similar content like this when I upload. And I believe that together we can grow as a community in this space. So just like I was really explaining, it was like all those factors shape us who we are. They shape and define who we are and how we perceive actually ourselves to be, and even how other people can actually perceive us, because we do not exist solo, but we exist in a society where there's that interaction that happens, and so it is easy for you to be said, yeah, she's like this, he's like that, all that. And I want to believe that even when you look into the portion of scriptures, Jesus' earthly father, Joseph, was identified as a carpenter. And, that is the profession that they knew. You see that even when Jesus was growing up at that tender age, all he knew and all he was introduced to was work. The portion of scripture tells us that he was helping out his father, in the carpentry work. So that is the identity they had as a family by the profession that they were doing. We also see that Daniel, in the book of Daniel, was identified as a person who had an excellent spirit. And we all know that Daniel drew his excellency in the place of God because he was a man that was always, on his knees. The Bible records like how many times? 3 times a day. So he drew his power and excellence to deliver in the Babylonian kingdom at a time where no one could. So he stood out because, even when he got threats that if you do serve your God, we are going to, punish you and all that. But he didn't care because he knew that his excellency and what he was doing was actually um, originally from who God says he was. And that's why he was not even threatened about what would come later or what would be the punishments that he would face in case he disobeyed a king's order. And we know that, of course, because he knew his identity. Later on, even the punishments that would come to him would actually be erased, and the king would actually promote him. Um, you see, sometimes as we go on in life, we do find ourselves, I think, at certain crossroads, seem to be portraying identity in the eyes of other people, but that's not who we are. You see, there is something, there is this analogy that says that show me a person in public and I will show you who they are in private. I think it's because on a public show you can put on any mask and everyone be like, yeah, she's like this, he's like this. But in private, where no one is watching, that is who you are, because you first exist in the private before you show up in the public. So all I wanted to all I'm trying to draw to is that um, sometimes life is exists in seasons, and there are those things in the additions that we have here. For example, um, way back, I used to hold my identity in the kind of work, in the kind of job that I am doing. And so I found it easier when somebody asked me, hey, talk about yourself. Ha, the first things I'm like, oh, my name is Halima, blah, 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 blah. I want this company and we do this and that. So for long, I found my identity was into the place of work. I thought my identity was into a position of authority or that title. But as time, every one of us goes through transitions in life. Okay. And if it's work transition, it means that our identity cannot only be held into what you are doing, it cannot be held into the place of work. But yeah, we may talk about the skill set because the skill set will always carry you somewhere, even when you transition from this place of work to another place of work. And of course, there are seasons that we still go in. There's a time when you were identified by the course you were doing at your bachelor's degree. Yeah, that was a time and a season for you to identify like that. But when life moves on, that means you have to embrace it and move forward. And that is who truly you become. But we very well know that, sometimes I told you that identity is also shaped by the different traits of a person, the characteristics that you display, and the personalities. And so there are moments when you're like, oh, I wish I was an introvert. I wish I was an extrovert. So that state of, I think, wanting to fit in, you want to be like this person, or you want to be like exactly who they are. I feel like sometimes I wonder, because imagine if God created only extroverts in the world, what would be on the streets? And if there were only introverts created, for heaven's sake, what would the streets look like? So I want to believe that the issue of identity goes back to the original creator. You see, in the portion of scripture, so I was telling you that in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, from verse 26, the scripture tells us that then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that keeps on the earth. So God created, this is verse 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them. Wow. Male and female, he created them. So we do not choose our identity. And that's why, he, from the original plan, he created you male and female and in his own image and likeness, So that means you were at the back of God's mind from the original, intention and creation. It means that even before you surfaced here, He saw your soul somewhere before you actually existed. And that is why Jeremiah 1:5, before you were formed into your mother's womb, I knew you. In other words, sometimes we tend to live as if there is no one, there is no an authority that knows entirely about us. But yeah, when we exist here on earth, it is so easy for you to get taken up by other little identities and accolades that you forget even who your creator says you are, that you forget that you exist, that he created you in his own image and likeness. So does that mean that because sometimes we do not know whose we are, so we tend to abuse our identity and live lowly than he expects us to be? Anyway, that's a question for you and me to actually ponder about and connect back to the roots of what he exactly wants us to be. Okay? And I just want to read Psalms 139 as well, from verse 15 to 16. It says, my frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the sacred place, when I was woven in the depths of the sea. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the sacred place. And just reading this, it just reflects that we know where we originate from, and we know whom we can go back to and tell and ask him, here I am. You know, I have realized that sometimes it's not until you go to the original manufacturer that's when you can get the original product. Sometimes we feel like, yeah, let me get the accolades that I can get on earth. These small identities of work, these small identities of a place or a season and everything. But all these will transition. And at certain point in life, you'll find that A is not B. And you find that you have moved on somehow. So I want to believe that our identity is deeply rooted in who God says you are. The rest of other small accolades and identity that we find ourselves in, they're actually additions to who you originally are in his mind. Remember when he says that before he formed you, he knew you. So that means he knows all the sets of characteristics, my personality, how do I behave, what are my abilities. He has given you the talents, he has given you the gifts. All those are embedded in you. But friends, I want to believe that when we do not go to him, to a place of communion with him, I believe that we can live less of our identity, know what he says of us. We cannot know that we are highly favored. We do not know that he has given us dominion over the creatures of the earth, and that means we live less of what he expects us to do. um Ever felt like you are still in a place of being accepted by what you are or by what people think you are? And sometimes you tend to put on a garment that wants to please other people. I'm inviting you to a place of going in all with your original manufacturer, with your original creator, and asking him, who am I? Why am I here? You know, why am I here? What was I created to do? For sure, I know that once we know our identity, then it will fuel our sense of belonging and purpose. I hope you have been blessed by this sharing. And I want to invite you to take off some time to reflect yourself. Talk to yourself, have a one on one with yourself, and sketch a map. Who are you? Why are you here? And I believe this will fuel you into growing your sense of purpose and why you are here. I hope you have been blessed. See you next time. Bye bye.